a dog can do.
I know, Dad can do
when
it.
he comes. So he can do.
Well, no, really fast.
What do you think about school uniform?
Oh, please, Chris,
it's
come
a bit
on.
snowy, but I'm tired.
Talk.
Dear Auntie,
Clean
I hope you are well. Yours, Darren.
Right.
My wobbly tooth. While I was eating my breakfast, I am 8 years old. We all had a good time, and I'd like to go there again. The end.
Talk, write and read.
This here is my grandmother's pipe. A very old pipe indeed. And my grandmother smoked one of these pipes a long time ago. And she used to send me down to a local store for tobacco, a penny's worth of tobacco for her pipe. When I came back with my granny's penny worth of tobacco for her pipe, Granny would reward me with a story from Granny's pocket. And my Granny could neither read or write, and she never read from books or any pieces of paper. She told us a story from her pocket. She had many wonderful stories in that pocket, and we all wondered how many stories Granny really had in this pocket. Till one day Granny was asleep, and my sister and I stole her pocket, and took it behind a tree, and opened it up, and looked inside, to see how many stories really were in the pocket. But we found none. Then we put the pocket back beside Granny, she was still asleep. And when she wakened up, she said, "Children, I need some more tobacco for my pipe." So we went to the village and got some more tobacco. Then we said, "Granny, we need another story from your pocket." She said, "Just a minute, children, I'll see." So she took up the pocket, had a look in, stared at it for a while, and then she folded it kindly and placed it by her side. She said, "Children, I can't tell you another story." I said, "Why, Granny?" "Well," she said, "someone opened my pocket when I was asleep." And Granny was really asleep. And all my stories have escaped. And Granny never told me another story from her pocket. But that was a long time ago. I didn't live in a house like this in these days because I was a traveller, one of the travelling people of Scotland. And now I live in one of these houses that's not the same to me anymore. For the most important part of my life, I remember to me now, was being a traveller child.
I must have fell away, right?
Okay.
We travelled all summer long, finding work wherever we could. When we travelled, we had to find a camping place for the night, and Father had to put up the tent. And the sort of tent we had to build was made from young saplings, kind of young trees, and Father would push them in the ground and tie them with pieces of string and then put a rod across the top. These two ends are left for a purpose, and you'll see the purpose why that tree is left like that. That's for the top bar. And then we'd cover it with canvas, and that canvas was waterproof. Right up over the top, okay? Right. These tents were very popular among the travelling people, and were ranging from 6 foot high till about 10, 12 feet long. And all these saplings and canvas had to be carried on your back. And each of the family took a part of the construction of the tent. When we needed something for bedding, if it was a nice warm day, the children would pull dry grasses or rushes, and Mother would lay the bed on the floor and cover it with a piece of canvas to make a kind of a mattress on the floor. And it was really very comfortable as children. And it was really very warm. The fire was very important. Come on, Tom, bring in the stick. We were brought up with how to kindle a fire and how to collect firewood from our very early stages as a child. Mother had to cook all the meals in the fire. Sometimes it burned all night, but we took good care that sparks didn't fly and cause any trouble. But you don't know where you'll be tomorrow, will you? I think we should stay in this place tomorrow. Have a day's rest. Well, we'll rest over tomorrow for another day. Then we'll be on our way again. Okay, Karen, is that you all right?
Yeah, thank you.
Our travels took us all over Scotland, and we had to find camping sites in these places Sometimes we liked to camp by the beach, because there by the seaside we could find shellfish and fish for something to eat. Sometimes we were camped on the hillside. We would hunt for rabbits and find game. One of my favourite places was when I camped by a loch, a freshwater loch, when the trout was there. But when people began to realise that the travelling people were catching trout, then they closed these camping places off. And I remember as children when we walked on and Daddy would say, we'll go to this place tonight. And we came there, there was a fence or a concrete post to turn us away. So we had to travel on. Being a traveller, work was not easy gotten, so sometimes you had to find your own source of work. Like Father would make baskets to hawk along the doors. We would help them collect the willows to make the baskets. We used to make flowers for Christmas, and for to get these flowers we had to take pieces of wood from the alderberry tree. And we would sit there, Father would carve a flower from a piece of wood, and he would teach us how it's done. These were the things we were taught to do so that someday we could do them for ourselves. Come on. Once work was over for the day, we had to find our own sources of entertainment. And we were taught by our parents many wonderful things. Come on. Little man. And then the older children had their games. Again, we had what you call quoits. We throw pitch and stones at a post. A direct hit was called for a 3, and to drop a close one beside it was a 1 or a 2. And the actual game was 21. And then we had what we know as Crossy Croony. Crossy Croony is a bit like noughts and crosses, but it's a little hard, and you had to try and outwit each other. Right? Doodle dum, toddle dee dum, toddle dee doodle 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 dum, toddle dee dum, toddle dee dum, doodle 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 dum, toddle dee dum, toddle dee dee doodle doodle dee dum, doodle doodle doo dum doo. Very good, Betsy. And when the dancing was over and the fire burnt down, it was story time. Storytelling was very important to the traveller children. Sometimes when they'd walked for miles, tired and hungry, and they had no source of entertainment, they would gather around the campfire and they would listen to a story. That was the only source of entertainment they had. Maybe it was told to them by an old uncle or an old auntie, maybe a grandfather or grandmother told them these stories. Because those stories were taught to them as a lesson, to teach them how to grow up in the future to come. These stories were told for that reason, to learn them how to behave themselves, not to be thieves, not to be stealing, not to wander at night time, not to be alone. There was many different tales for many different reasons. Even my young son at this present day, who goes to school, comes and when I say, Thomas, you're annoying me, go and read a book. He'll say, Daddy, I don't want to read a book. Why don't you tell me a story from your mouth? The old beggar man was tired, for he had travelled far that morning, and he was hungry and weary, and his feet were sore. He said to himself, I must find some place to rest my weary feet, because I cannot go another step. But I can't sit here by the roadway. I'll have to leave the roadway and find myself a better place to rest. So he left the roadway and crossed the moor, and then he came to a little hill that was covered with flowers, buttercups and daisies. And he said to himself, this is a wonderful place for me to rest. So he laid himself down on the hill, sat there quite content. When lo and behold, he had not sat for long, when a voice spoke and said, Beggar man, you must leave this place. And the beggar man said, are there someone talking? I swear I hear voices. But he could not see a soul. And then the voice spoke again and said, Beggar man, you must leave this place. The beggar looked all around, but he could see no one. And then the voice spoke once more, and right before his feet stood a little man no higher than 6 inches tall. The beggar said, "Are you a fairy or a goblin?" And the little man said, "Never you mind, old beggar, what I am. You must leave this place." But the beggar said, "I'm tired and weary and hungry, as you see. I cannot go another step. And as you see, my boots are worn and my toes are hurting on the road." And the little man felt sorry for the beggar man. He said, "Beggar man, what would you take to leave this place? Would you like some boots for your feet?" And the old beggar said, "If you could find me some boots, I'd be on my way." And the little man said, "Is that a promise? Will you leave this place if I find you some boots?" And the old beggar said, "If you find me some boots, I'll leave this place immediately." And then the little man was gone. The beggar rubbed his eyes and he said to himself, "Have I been dreaming? Have I fallen asleep?" But lo and behold, within a few moments, back comes the little man again, and he holds in his hand a little pair of boots, no larger than a couple of hazelnuts. And he said, "Beggar, would you like these boots?" And the poor old beggar said, "Little man, what would I do with these? They are no good to me." But the little man said, "Just a moment." And he placed the boots by the beggar's feet, pointed his finger, and an amazing thing happened. The boots began to grow. They got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when the little man thought they were large enough, he pointed his finger once more. And there beside the beggar stood the most beautiful boots the beggar ever saw in his life. He said, "Are they for me, really, for me?" And the little man said, "They're for you, beggar man, put them on." So quickly the beggar put on the boots and he stood up. He said, "Can I go now?" The little man said, "Not yet, beggar man, just you wait. You see, these boots I have given you were made for the king of the fairies. And tonight we're going to have a little party on this hill. And that is why we want you to leave. But remember, beggar man, these boots you have now will never get dirty, they will never get worn. You will have them all your life, but you must promise never tell a soul where you got them." "I promise," said the beggar man, "I promise. Can I go now?" "Be on your way," said the little man. And then the little man was gone. The beggar stood up and he walked on. He felt as if he wanted to run. He felt as if he could fly. At last, he had the most beautiful boots he'd ever possessed. The old beggar travelled on his way. He travelled for weeks. He travelled for months. He travelled for a whole year, till he was far away from the place he met the little man. And then one day, he came to a river, and he thought to himself, "You know, I feel ashamed of myself to put my dirty feet in my beautiful boots. I think I'll sit and wash my feet here." So the old beggar goes down by the riverside, takes off his beautiful boots, places them by his side, and begins to wash his feet in the river. When lo and behold, at that moment, up comes a fisherman who'd been fishing early in the morning. When he saw the old beggar sitting there with the most beautiful boots he'd ever saw in his life beside him, he was amazed. He said, "Good morning, old man." And the beggar said, "Good morning." He said, "Are you really a beggar?" And the old man said, "Well, some people call me a beggar man, some people call me a tramp man, but I don't mind, as long as they don't call me down." "But tell me," said the fisherman, "I'm a rich man, you know, and I've never owned boots like these in my life. Where did you get these beautiful boots? They are not made for a beggar. They are made for a king." And the old beggar man said, "Of course they were made for a king. They were made for the king of the fairies, and he gave them to me a long time ago to be on my way." "Fairies," said the fisherman. "Ha, ha, ha," and he walked on his way up the riverway. The old tramp looked after the fisherman, disappeared in the distance, and he said to himself, "You know, some people won't believe the truth when they hear it." And then the old tramp turned round, and his beautiful boots were gone. He remembered now he had broken his promise to the little man he had met a long time before. The tramp was sad and broken-hearted, for he knew in his heart he would never see his beautiful boots again. He sat there by the riverside a long, long while, till he had to go on his way and travel on there with his bare feet, till some kind person along the way gave the old tramp some boots. The old tramp lived for a long, long time, but he never saw his beautiful boots again, all because he had broken his promise to the little man he had met a long time before.